Story 1. The Screams Under the Floorboards, Japan. 1988 Tokyo. 1988. The air was humid, and the quiet suburb of Nurimeku was the kind of place where nothing ever really happened. Families left their doors unlocked. Kids played in the street until the orange glow of sunset told them to head home. The Takahashi family had lived there for years. Hiroshi, his wife Keiko, and their young son Ryo. Their home was small but warm, with creaking wooden floors and paper doors that whispered when the wind moved. Everything was ordinary, until the smell began. It started faintly, like damp earth. Keiko thought it might be mold. She scrubbed every inch of the tatami floor, burned incense, even replaced the mats. But the smell only grew stronger, sharper. By the third week, it was unbearable. Then came the scratching. Late at night, Hiroshi would wake to the sound, faint but distinct. A dull dragging, as if something was shifting beneath him. When he pressed his ear to the floorboards, the noise stopped. He told himself it was rats. But deep down, he knew rats didn't whisper. One evening, as Keiko tucked Ryo into bed, the boy asked, "Mom, why is someone crying under the floor?" She froze. "What did you say? The lady. She cries every night. She says it's dark down there." The next morning, Hiroshi called a repairman to inspect the floor. They removed the first tatami mat, then another. Beneath them, a wooden hatch. It wasn't supposed to be there. When they lifted it open, a wave of rot hit them. Hiroshi gagged. The repairman turned pale. Below, in the narrow crawl space, was a skeleton, curled up, clutching a torn scrap of fabric that had once been a kimono. But what made the scene unbearable wasn't the sight. It was the sound. A faint sigh. Like a breath escaping the earth, police identified the remains as a woman reported missing 8 years earlier. No signs of forced entry. No murder weapon. Just one haunting detail. Her fingernails were broken down to the flesh. She'd tried to claw her way out. The Takahashis moved away soon after. The house stood empty for years. But neighbors say on humid nights, when the air is heavy and still, you can hear it, a soft dragging beneath the floorboards, a woman's faint, broken sobs rising through the wood. "Please, let me out, and those who've entered the house since swear they smell something first. A mix of incense, blood, and old tatami mats, a warning, perhaps." That some doors in Japan were never meant to be opened. Story 2. The Phantom Train, India. 2000, for there's a small town in Rajasthan called Koldhar abandoned, sun-scorched and silent. Locals say that at night, the wind carries whispers from the past, voices that echo through the dunes. But there is another legend that travelers rarely speak of, the one about the train that never street. The tracks that cut through Kuldar's edge were dismantled in the late 1960s. No trains had. Passed for decades, yet villagers swore that every few nights, at exactly 2:43 a.m., they heard it, the distant rumble of iron on iron, the shriek of steel against steel, the low haunting whistle that tore through the desert stillness. In 2004. A young railway enthusiast named Rahul Verma decided to document it. He'd heard the stories growing up, of a ghost train that carried the dead, of passengers with no faces, of lights that burned blue in the sand. He didn't believe in ghosts. He believed in proof. Armed with a camera, flashlight, and a tape recorder, he camped near the old Koldhar station. Nothing more than a crumbling platform and a rusted sign eaten by sand and time. The air that night was dry and sharp. Even the crickets were silent. At 2:39 a.m., the wind shifted. Rahul's tape began to hiss. Static filled his headphones. He tapped the mic, nothing. Then, in the distance, he heard it, a low, thunderous hum. He stood up, eyes wide. The sound grew louder, closer, until the ground itself began to tremble beneath his feet. Then came the whistle, long, drawn out, mournful. He raised his camera, and through the lens he saw lights. Faint at first, then blazing. Dozens of windows glowing a pale, bluish-white, speeding down invisible rails. The train roared past him, yet there was no wind, no displacement, no vibration. Just light and sound and a suffocating cold that clawed at his lungs. Inside the glowing compartments, he swore he saw faces, hollow, grey, pressed against the glass, watching him. Some were screaming, but no sound came out. As suddenly as it came, it was gone. The lights vanished into the desert night. The rumble fading into silence, Rahul stumbled toward the tracks, his camera trembling in his hands. The digital screen flickered, then died. When he replayed the tape the next morning, all he heard was a train whistle followed by his own voice whispering, "Who are you?" And then, faintly, something answered, a whisper layered under static. Next stop, Cold Harbor. Rahul's body was found. 3 days later in the dunes near the old station. No signs of struggle, no footprints, just sand. His phone was buried beside him, recording the endless sound of desert wind. To this day, locals say if you visit the ruins at 2:43 a.m., you'll hear the same whistle, and if you see the lights approaching, you must look away, because the moment you look inside, one of the passengers will see you, and you'll ride with them forever. Story 3. The Missing Security Guard, Chicago. 1996. The Jefferson Mall was one of those places that had seen better days. Flickering lights, cracked tiles, and shuttered storefronts where laughter and life had once echoed at night. When the doors were locked and the crowds gone, it was a maze of shadows, humming fluorescence, and forgotten mannequins staring into nothing. That was when Daniel Reeves went missing. He was a 42-year-old night security guard, ex-military, steady as stone. Everyone liked him, quiet, punctual, by the book. He'd worked the night shift alone for years, until March 5, 1996. That was the night his logbook stopped mid-sentence. The entry read, 2:37 a.m. Hearing something by the maintenance door. It's knocking. After that, nothing. When he didn't clock out at 6, his supervisor called his radio. No answer. The mall was empty, but his flashlight lay on the floor near the security office, still on. Its beam pointed at the maintenance door. The surveillance footage should have solved it. Instead, it deepened the nightmare. The tape showed Daniel walking down the dim corridor, shoulders stiff, radio clipped to his chest. He paused by the heavy steel maintenance door, the one that led to an old basement no one used anymore. He tilted his head, listening. The camera caught faint movement. A shadow flickering at the bottom of the door, like someone pacing behind it. He hesitated, hand hovering over the latch. Then the knocking began. Slow, deliberate, 3 sharp bangs. He stepped back, muttering something under his breath. Then, unbelievably, he opened the door. The camera glitched. For 2 full seconds, the footage warped. Horizontal lines, static, distortion. When it cleared, Daniel was gone. The door swung slowly on its hinges, revealing nothing but darkness beyond. The basement was searched top to bottom. No trace of him. No sign of forced entry. And yet, every camera after that moment captured strange details. motion sensors triggered without cause, lights flickering in rooms where the power had been cut, and the unmistakable sound of knocking echoing through the empty halls. When police enhanced the footage, they noticed something the mall staff had missed. In the final frame before the distortion, right as Daniel opened the door, a figure could be seen, faint, almost transparent, standing behind him. Its shape was wrong, too tall. Its limbs too thin, almost bending backward, and its head was tilted at an impossible angle. The Jefferson Mall was shut down 2 years later, demolished. But workers at the construction site reported hearing knocking from the debris piles at night. One swore he saw a man in a torn security uniform walking between the rubble, whispering, "Don't open the door." To this day, no one knows where Daniel Reeves went. But sometimes, when an empty hallway echoes too long, and a door you thought was locked suddenly creaks open, it's best not to check. Story 4. The Crying Doll, Mexico, 2001. San Luis Potosi, Mexico, a quiet, sun-bleached town where the streets smelled of dust and church incense. In 2001, the Morales family lived in a small stucco house near the edge of town. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, where superstition blended with faith, and where no one forgot the story of the doll that cried blood. Her name was Lucia, a bright 6-year-old girl who never went anywhere without her favorite toy, a handmade porcelain doll named Rosita. Rosita wore a red dress, white lace, and had glass eyes that shimmered like emeralds. After Lucia died, a sudden fever that took her. Overnight, her parents buried Rosita beside her little coffin, wrapped in a child's blanket. It was supposed to bring peace. But 3 nights after the funeral, the doll came back. Lucia's mother, Teresa, found Rosita sitting on the girl's bed. Her dress was smeared with dirt, her porcelain face cracked slightly at the cheek, as if she declawed her way out of the earth. Teresa screamed, calling for her husband. He burned the doll that night in the yard. But the next morning, Rosita was back, perched on the kitchen table, and touched by fire. That's when the crying began. Every night around 3 a.m., the sound echoed through the Morales home. It wasn't the sob of a person, but something smaller, a muffled, fragile weeping that seemed to come from inside the walls. And every morning, they found small reddish stains on the floorboards. Blood. Teresa begged the local priest for help. Father Mendoza arrived, clutching his crucifix, a bottle of holy water, and trembling hands. The doll sat on the table before him, lifeless, innocent. He sprinkled the water, recited prayers, and pressed the cross to her forehead. The lights flickered. Then, from the doll's glass eyes, tears of blood began to drip. The priest dropped the crucifix and fled. The family moved out within days, leaving everything behind: furniture, clothes, even photographs of Lucia. But Rosita stayed. The house rotted and decayed, yet the doll remained. Untouched by dust or time, years later, when the town decided to demolish the property, the workers refused to enter. They said they heard a little girl laughing inside. Even though the windows were sealed shut, the house was torn down eventually. But among the rubble, the foreman found something buried beneath the foundation, a porcelain hand clutching a piece of faded fabric. It was the same blanket Lucia had been buried with. Today, Rosita is said to rest in a glass case at a local museum, locked away in the basement archives. Visitors who've seen her swear her eyes move, following them as they leave. And every few months, the curator finds faint red stains inside the glass. No leaks, no explanation. Just a little girl's doll, still crying for her lost friend, and for anyone who dares to listen. Story 5. The Elevator Man, South Korea, 2013 Seoul. South Korea, March 17, 2013. It started with a CCTV clip, grainy, late-night footage from a downtown apartment complex. What people saw in that video would haunt the internet for years, and give birth to one of the strangest modern urban legends, the Elevator Man. At 11:58 p.m., a young woman named Ji-yoon Park, aged 25, entered the apartment lobby after a night shift. She looked exhausted, clutching her phone, pressing the elevator button, yawning. When the doors slid open, she stepped inside, turned, and waited. Seconds later, something changed. She pressed a button, then another, then all of them. Her expression shifted. From tired to terrified, she stepped into the corner, glancing over her shoulder toward the hallway. Something unseen had caught her attention. The elevator doors opened on multiple floors. Each time, she peeked out, gasped, and slammed the close button repeatedly. Her breathing grew heavier. Then, she turned to the camera, eyes wide, trembling, whispering something. The audio had no sound, but lip readers later claimed she mouthed, "Please make it stop." At 12:03 a.m., the elevator descended on its own to the basement level, a floor that required a keycard Ji-yoon didn't have. She stood frozen as the lights flickered. Then, her body jolted, as if she'd felt something grab her. The footage cut to static. When maintenance staff reviewed the video the next morning, Ji-yoon had vanished. Her phone was found in the corner of the elevator, screen cracked, still recording. The final seconds showed her whispering, and a faint reflection behind her, barely visible in the stainless steel wall. A tall, shadowy figure standing inches away. Police searched the entire building. No signs of struggle, no forced entry. Every camera outside the elevator worked perfectly, except the ones near the basement, which had all gone black between 12:02 and 12:05 a.m. 3 days later. The janitor found something in the rooftop water tank. The lid was sealed shut with a rusted lock, one that hadn't been touched in years. Inside, floating face down, was Ji-yoon. Her body showed no bruises, no wounds, just the faint marks of fingers on her wrists. As if she'd been held, the lock was still intact. Theories exploded online, everything from ghosts to government experiments to serial killers. But the most disturbing detail came from the coroner's report. Ji-yoon's lungs were filled not with water, but with air, as though she'd suffocated in a vacuum. Since then, residents claim that sometimes, late at night, the elevator in that same building stops at random floors, doors opening to empty hallways. And if you're alone inside, the lights will dim, the buttons will flicker, and for just a second, you'll feel warm breath against your neck. That's when you'll hear a whisper in Korean, "You shouldn't have come here alone." And then, a knock, soft and deliberate, from inside the elevator wall. Story 6, the motel room, 103 Arizona. 1999. They say every motel has one room the staff avoids. A room with stains that don't come out, smells that don't fade, and noises that don't belong to the living. For the Sundown Motel off Highway 89 in Arizona, that room was 103. Cheap rates, flickering neon, desert silence surrounded it. Truckers, drifters, and the lost all passed through. Some left bad reviews, some never left at all. The manager, Don Harper, never rented 103 unless he had to. Pipes leak. He'd say, "EC's busted." But the truth was darker. In the summer of 1999, the air conditioner in room 103 began dripping again. The smell came first, sweet, metallic, rotten. A couple staying next door complained that something was moving inside their wall. When maintenance pried open the vent, the smell hit them so hard one man vomited. Behind the drywall was a crawl space. It wasn't on the blueprints. Just a hollow area big enough for a person. Inside it was a nest of blankets, candy wrappers, and Polaroid photographs. Dozens of them. Each picture showed sleeping guests in room 103, taken from inches away. Their mouths slightly open, eyes shut. Every photo time-stamped between 2 and 4 a.m. Police combed the motel for evidence. The hidden space had a narrow tunnel leading behind the headboard, a perfect peephole view through the wallpaper. Whoever had been there had been living in the walls, watching, waiting. When they lifted the mattress, they found a hole cut into the box spring, lined with duct tape, a hiding spot. And under it, an old VHS tape. It was labeled simply, "Don't watch." The footage began with static. Then the view of room 103, filmed from a low angle, like someone crouching in the corner. A couple entered, laughing, unaware. The tape fast-forwarded through the night until they were asleep. Then the camera tilted slowly. Toward the bed, a shadowy figure crawled out from under it, long hair matted, skin gray with dirt, and stood over them, watching, breathing. The tape ended with the sound of humming. Police never found the person who made it. The crawl space was sealed, the room closed off. But travelers passing the motel say the sign for room 103 still glows faintly at night, even though its wiring was ripped out years ago. One trucker claimed he stopped there during a storm and accidentally got the key for 103. He said he heard breathing the moment he stepped inside, slow, deliberate, from behind the wall. When he flipped the light switch, he saw a message carved into the paint above the bed. "Thank you for leaving the door unlocked." He never stayed at motels again. And to this day, the Sundown Motel's guest book has one rule scribbled in red ink on the first page: do not rent room 103. Ever. Story 7. The Voice in the Baby Monitor, Scotland. 2009, in the quiet suburbs of Aberdeenshire, Scotland. The McLeans thought they'd finally found peace. Their new home was modest to stories. Cream walls, a backyard where the mist rolled in each morning, after years of trying. Sarah and Mark McLean had just welcomed their baby girl, Emily. Like every cautious new parent, Sarah set up a baby monitor beside the crib. One of those new digital ones, crisp sound, night vision camera, even two-way talk. She used to keep it by her bedside. The faint rhythm of Emily's breathing comforting her through sleepless nights. But round mid-February 2009, the noises changed. At first, it was faint static, harmless, then whispers. A man's voice, low, muffled, speaking words Sarah couldn't quite make out. She woke Mark. They thought it was interference from a nearby home. But when Mark scanned the frequencies, there were no other monitors nearby, just theirs, and the voice didn't stop. One night, Sarah crept to Emily's room after hearing the whisper again. The monitor picked up what sounded like someone saying, "Don't cry, Daddy's here." She froze. Mark was asleep in the next room. Sarah opened the nursery door slowly, her heart hammering. Emily was awake, staring at the ceiling, not crying, just watching something that wasn't there. When Sarah checked the closet and under the crib, the room was empty, but as she turned to leave, the monitor on the nightstand crackled again, and a man's laughter, soft, distorted, filled the air. They called the police the next morning. Officers dismissed it as a signal crossover, a prank. But the McLeans weren't convinced. So Mark replaced the monitor, upgraded the security system, and even installed a camera. For a few nights, things went quiet. Then one night, while reviewing footage, Mark noticed something. Round 3:14 a.m., the camera's motion sensor activated, but no one entered the nursery. Emily, barely a few months old, suddenly sat upright in her crib, staring directly at the camera. And from the baby monitor on Sarah's bedside came that same voice again. This time, clear as day. "I told you I'd come back." Mark rushed to the nursery. The temperature had dropped sharply. The camera feed glitched, flickered, then cut to black. When it came back on, Emily was lying down again, fast asleep. The next day, Sarah checked the saved recordings. The file from 3:14 a.m. was missing. Not corrupted, deleted. But she swore neither of them had touched it. 2 weeks later, they moved out. The new tenants didn't last long either. A young couple with a baby boy. The woman later told a neighbor that she'd often hear a man's voice over the monitor whispering the same phrase, "Don't cry, Daddy's here." When she told the landlord, he revealed something the McLeans had never known. Years earlier, a man named David Grant had lived in that same house. His infant son died in the nursery, and the man took his own life in the very same room. Police confirmed the monitor signal wasn't picking up anything external. It wasn't broadcasting. It was recording. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind hits the right frequency, people nearby claim they can still hear that faint whisper carried through the static. "Don't cry, Daddy's here." Story 8. The Woman in the Elevator, the Eliza Lamb Case. 2013, Los Angeles. 2013. The Cecil Hotel stood like a decaying relic in downtown smoke-stained skyline. A place with more ghosts than guests. Tourists called it affordable. Locals called it cursed. When Eliza Lamb, a 21-year-old student from Vancouver, checked in on January 20th, she didn't know the building's dark history. Murders, suicides, and a long-forgotten rumor that the walls themselves listened. She was cheerful online. posting photos, journal entries, and travel updates. But in her last days, something changed. Her tone became erratic, paranoid. She wrote about feeling followed, about people outside her door, and then came the elevator footage. It was February 19th when Eliza's body was discovered, decomposing inside a water tank on the hotel's rooftop. Guests had complained of low water pressure and foul taste. Maintenance opened the tank, and there she was, floating face up, naked, her clothes at the bottom. But before that discovery, there was the video, the last known footage of her alive. Security cameras captured her entering the elevator at 8:59 p.m. on February 1st. She steps in, presses several buttons, and waits. The door doesn't close. She leans out, peeking into the hallway. No one's there. Then she retreats, hides in the corner like a frightened child, steps out again, waving her hands as if talking to someone invisible. Her fingers twist and move oddly, almost ritualistic. Her expression shifts between fear, confusion, and something darker. Recognition. The elevator still doesn't move. The door remains open far, longer than it should. At 9:02 p.m., Eliza steps out completely. Her hands move in circles, as if pushing through invisible walls. She turns left and vanishes from view. Moments later, the doors close, the elevator descends. That's where the video ends. Theories exploded online. Some said she was having a manic episode Eliza had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Others swore she was hiding from someone or something. But no one could explain the elevator malfunction, why the door stayed open only for her. or why it worked perfectly seconds after she left. Then came the strange coincidences. The hotel's water tank could only be accessed through a locked door and alarm-secured hatch. The lid was too heavy for one person to close from the inside. Elisa's phone was never found. Autopsy reports were inconclusive. No drugs, no alcohol, just water in her lungs. The coroner called it an accidental drowning. But how does someone accidentally drown inside a sealed tank on a locked roof? Weeks later, a guest named Mariah posted on her travel forum that she heard knocking sounds through the pipes before Eliza's body was discovered, soft, rhythmic knocks echoing through the walls. Like someone tapping from inside the tank, she wrote. Some guests complained that the water from the faucets ran black for a few seconds, then turned reddish-brown. Maintenance told them it was rust, but no one could shake the thought that they'd drunk from the same water that held her body for 19 days. Local rumors deepened the mystery. The Cecil Hotel had been the haunt of serial killers. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, once lived on the 14th floor. Years earlier, Jack Unterweger, another killer, had stayed there while writing about crime in Los Angeles. The place was a magnet for the lost and the damned. Yet one detail still chills investigators. The last person to see Eliza alive wasn't hotel staff. It was a maintenance worker who claimed he saw her talking to herself in the lobby mirror, as if someone else's reflection was replying, and then she smiled, whispered. I found it and walked toward the elevator. In 2016, a guest in room for 112 recorded faint sounds from the hallway late at night. Metallic banging followed by a single female voice saying, "Push the button." No one was outside when he opened the door. To this day, the Cecil Hotel remains mostly closed. Tour guides whisper about the water girl who still rides the elevator between the 14th floor and the roof, her pale reflection visible in the glass just before the lights flicker. Sometimes, guests claim the buttons press themselves, floor 14, then our roof. The same sequence Eliza pressed that night. If you ever find yourself in an old hotel, alone in an elevator that won't move, and you feel a cold breath on your neck just before the doors close, don't look up. Because some elevators don't take you to your floor. They take you back to where you vanished. Story 9. The Tunnel Lights, Brazil. 1998 Brazil. 1998. The Rodovia dos Immigrants Highway cuts through miles of dense jungle and mountain tunnels, connecting Sao Paulo to the coast. Truckers call it the Road of Lost Voices every year. Drivers report strange lights in the tunnels, flickering, silent, always vanishing when approached. No one took those stories seriously. Until the night Luciano Vieira disappeared. Luciano was 28, a long-haul truck driver with a newborn son and a reputation for reliability. On October 14th, he left Santos after midnight, hauling electronics to Sao Paulo. It was a clear night. No fog, no rain, and the moon hanging low over the highway. At 1:32 a.m., he entered Tunnel 21, one of the longest stretches, nearly 900 meters carved straight through granite. Surveillance cameras caught his truck entering, but it never came out. Police found no signs of braking, skidding, or collision. The tunnel was empty. Luciano had vanished mid-route. The first search authorities sealed the tunnel. For 2 days, investigators combed every inch. They found only one thing: Luciano's CB radio, lying on the road, still powered on, the mic dangling. When they replayed the last transmission, this is what they heard. "Yeah, I see the light up ahead, but it's not the tunnels. Wait. It's static. There's someone walking. No, that's not." Crackling silence. Then a faint echoing hum. That was it. His family begged police to widen the search. thinking Luciano had been hijacked. But the investigators found no exits, no tire marks, and no sign of forced entry anywhere near Tunnel 21. It was as if the truck and the man had simply evaporated. The dashcam. 2 weeks later, police recovered a damaged dashcam from a drainage pipe near the tunnel's northern exit. The footage, though grainy, was intact. The video began normally. Luciano humming to himself, headlights illuminating the curved tunnel ahead. Then, roughly halfway through, something changed. The tunnel lights began to flicker, one by one, from back to front, plunging the road into darkness. Then a blue-white glow appeared in the distance, hovering midair, slowly pulsing like breath. Luciano's voice could be heard faintly. "What the hell is that?" He slowed the truck. The glow didn't move. Instead, it expanded, spreading across the tunnels, crawling like light through water. And then, right before the camera glitched out, a silhouette appeared in front of the truck. It wasn't human. It looked too long, too thin, its limbs stretching unnaturally, head tilting as if curious. The shape didn't walk. It glided, feet inches above the ground, its edges shimmering like heat haze. The dashcam went white, then black. The footage never reached public release. But after word leaked, other drivers came forward, stories from years before Luciano vanished. A bus driver in 1992 reported passengers fading out mid-route through the same tunnel, appearing transparent, then gone when the lights flickered. A trucker in 1995 swore he'd seen a car split in half by a flash of light, then reappear whole seconds later. No wreckage ever found. Locals told older tales, pre-highway legends, of illuminados, ghostly figures seen along the jungle passes since the 1800s, spirits of miners lost in cave-ins, condemned to wander tunnels made of stone and echo. One miner's diary, archived in Sao Paulo, described the same light, a shimmering doorway that hums like thunder. The return. In 2001, almost 3 years later, highway maintenance crews reopened a sealed section of Tunnel 21 to reinforce cracked walls. Deep inside, behind a concrete panel, they found something. A truck door, half-crushed, rusted, but unmistakably belonging to Luciano's vehicle. It was fused into the wall like it had melted. There, forensic testing revealed traces of unknown metallic residue, not from welding, not corrosion, something unearthly. According to the lab technician's notes, and was inside the panel cavity, carved into the concrete, were handprints, deep, jagged, like someone had tried to claw their way out. Each print was smeared with a dark, crystalline residue. Police classified it as an industrial accident. But the case quietly disappeared from records within months. The last recording in 2003. An anonymous user uploaded an audio file to a Brazilian paranormal forum. The file, titled Luciano_to1.wav, contained 27 seconds of garbled noise. At second 19, a voice whispers, "The light is a door." Experts later matched the voice print. It was Luciano. Vieira, present day. Tunnel 21 is still operational, but drivers avoid it after dark. They say sometimes, when the fog rolls down from the mountains, the tunnel lights flicker blue and radios lose signal. A few truckers have claimed to see something through the mist. A man standing in the center of the tunnel, waving a flare that doesn't cast a shadow. When they slow down, he vanishes. One dashcam video from 2020 briefly went viral before being deleted. The camera shows empty asphalt, then the faint outline of a truck cabin shimmering like a mirage, moving backward at impossible speed before fading into the concrete. If you drive through tunnel 21 after midnight and your headlights catch something glowing in the distance. Don't stop. Don't. Look directly at the light, because it might look back. Story 10. The Faceless Woman of Room 313, India. 2005 Kolkata General Hospital was old, peeling paint, endless corridors, and a night shift where nurses swore the fluorescent lights hummed like whispers. One such night, Nurse Priya Das was assigned to room 313, an isolation ward where patients with contagious diseases were kept. She entered at 11:45 p.m., carrying charts and a flashlight. The room was empty, cold, and smelled faintly of antiseptic. Suddenly, the monitor flickered. On the screen was a patient she hadn't admitted, a woman sitting upright on the bed. Her face was featureless, blank, smooth skin stretched across her skull like wax. Priya blinked. The figure vanished. At 12:12 a.m., the CCTV captured her, faceless, walking the corridor silently, gliding past other staff without making a sound. Every attempt to speak failed. The monitor showed her mouth moving, but no sound came out. By morning, Priya had vanished from the hospital entirely. Security footage showed her walking calmly out of the back gate, carrying her bag, like nothing had happened, yet her shoes were covered in soil, as if she had crawled underground. The hospital forbade discussion of room 313. Nurses who worked night shifts report faint scratching behind walls, whispering voices calling out patients' names, glimpses of a faceless figure in the hallway mirrors. Story 11. The Lighthouse Keeper's Last Log, Scotland. 1923, the Eilean Mor Lighthouse sits isolated in the Outer Hebrides. In 1923, 3 keepers vanished without a trace. Their last log entry is haunting. The fog carries voices. The fog carries them closer. We cannot light the lamp. Something moves in the mist, watching. When a rescue ship arrived weeks later, the lighthouse was empty. Chairs toppled, food rotted, and the logbook lay open on a table. No bodies were ever found. Sailors report that on foggy nights, a light flashes from the tower. Though the lighthouse has been automated for decades, and voices whisper from the sea. Story 12. The Vanishing Roommate, Texas. 2010 college dorms are supposed to be safe, not for Hannah Carter. Her roommate, Lydia, disappeared one night without leaving the room. Her bed was made, her belongings untouched, her laptop open. Surveillance footage from the hall shows Lydia entering the room at 11:58 p.m. She never came out, yet, weeks later, students claim to hear someone singing faintly from the empty room. A lullaby Hannah doesn't recognize. Attempts to open the door sometimes fail. The knob won't turn, or the door seems locked from the inside. Authorities could not explain how someone vanished from a fully secured dorm. Some students report feeling watched when passing the room at night. Story 13. The Babysitter in the Shadow, California. 2006, Megan was babysitting for the Johnsons. Around 11 p.m., she heard faint footsteps upstairs. The children were asleep. Checking each room, she found nothing. Then, she glanced at the living room mirror. A dark figure crouched behind her, tall. Then, with glowing eyes, she screamed. The figure vanished. She called 911, and police found the back door locked from the inside. Windows closed, yet muddy footprints led to nowhere. The Johnsons moved away shortly after. Megan still reports nightmares of the shadow, always whispering, "You shouldn't be here." Story 14. The Night Visitor, Germany. 2012, a family in Bavaria woke to the sound of breathing in the hallway. The mother checked each room. No one was there. Security footage revealed a man in old military attire standing by the staircase, staring at the sleeping children. He made no movement toward the camera and vanished before anyone could approach. Police found no evidence of entry. Neighbors report the house appears occupied at night, but doors remain locked. Lights flicker, and faint footsteps echo in empty rooms. Story 15. The Forest Watcher Russia. 2003 in the Siberian wilderness. Hikers disappeared near Lake Baikal. Survivors claim a figure watches silently from the tree line. Tall, featureless, and motionless for hours. Those who looked directly at it report losing consciousness or experiencing hallucinations of their deepest fears. One hiker's camera captured a faint humanoid outline during daylight, standing on a hill far away, watching. When police reviewed the footage, the figure was gone. Locals call it the Silent Hunter. Story 16. The Vanishing Village, China. 1985, a village in Yunnan province, Huaxi. Reportedly vanished overnight. Survivors say neighbors disappeared while sleeping. When government teams arrive, the village was empty. Meals on tables, livestock wandering. Smoke rising from chimneys, but no inhabitants. Some claim they saw villagers in the forest at night, performing rituals, faces pale and expressionless, whispering in unrecognizable tongues. Those who stayed nearby report hearing chanting carried by the wind for months. Story 17. The Crying in Apartment 7B, Japan. 2007. Tokyo, 2007. Residents of Apartment 7B complained of crying every night from a vacant unit. Maintenance confirmed the apartment was unoccupied. A tenant installed a camera at 2 a.m. A small figure appeared, a girl, pale, kneeling, head in her hands, wailing silently when approached. She vanished. Attempts to enter 7B reveal locked doors and peeling wallpaper. Yet faint cries continue nightly. Local legend says a girl was murdered in the building decades ago, and the walls remember her grief. Story 18. The Highway Phantom, USA. 1990 for Route 66, New Mexico. Travelers report a woman in white walking along the highway at night. Cars slow down. The figure vanishes when approached. In 1994, a trucker captured footage. The woman stood by the median, raising her arm. As he approached, his radio and engine died, lights flickering. When he stopped, she was gone, leaving only footprints in the dirt, wet, disappearing in the middle of the asphalt. The highway has claimed countless travelers. Some say the woman is a warning, a spectre born of tragedy, ensuring no one repeats the mistakes of the past.